Place. 365, we making a place. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. Sport all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
And welcome all, one and come all to the latest episode of Real Talk. And we are in the middle of potentially a real upset as Gonzaga is currently down, I believe, 6 points to Arkansas. It looks like they might have just gotten and one. And that would have been Holmgren's, I think, his fourth foul. So it's one of those games where this tournament is holding true to what it is and what it's been. Oh no, Chet fouled out. I apologize. That was his fifth foul. So Chet Holmgren has fouled out. Gonzaga is down 6. Arkansas is at the line with 3:29 left. So it is not looking good for the Zags right now. Missed free throw. So we'll definitely keep you guys abreast of anything that's coming on or what's going on rather so far with everything that's going on with the games. I believe Villanova is relatively comfortably ahead. So we'll definitely keep you tuned in and updated on that as well. But Arkansas is currently up 7. But we do have a lot of other things to get into. But before that, I do want to check in with my co-host. What's going on, Kenny?
Hey, man, just, trying to keep track of these games. And like you said, it's a couple of one upset that we got brewing. But I do want to say really quick about that Gonzaga game, just about that call. I just watched the replay of it, and I think that was a bad call because it looked like he was vertical. So I think the referee might have missed that call, and that's a big loss for Gonzaga. So I'm sure if this holds up, if Arkansas is able to hold on and win this game, I'm sure that's going to be the talk tomorrow about that call.
And I've been watching as well. That wasn't the first bad call on him. He had another call, I think, for his third foul that it looked more like an offensive foul. And even, I think it was maybe Gene Steratore said it probably should have been offensive. So he picked up at least 2 fouls that obviously in a game of this magnitude, he's your 1, maybe 1A. And Arkansas just hit a 3 to go up 8.
Yes.
2 minutes left. So I think
Gonzaga's in trouble.
I think the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
So Anthony, you got it right. March Madness is madness. And it seems like every year there's madness, but this year seems like it's a different level of madness.
It has been for sure. It's for sure.
So that's just, and we got some more games tonight. So I think this game might be in hand, but we got Duke and Texas Tech, and we got Houston and Arizona tonight. So I do want to open it up to you, Sir Kenny. Who do you got in tonight's games?
I like Duke. I like Duke versus Texas Tech. I think that, I'm just going by what I've seen from Duke. I haven't seen Texas Tech play yet, so I'm definitely curious to see them play. But I'm just going off what I've seen from Duke, and I'm a big Paolo Banchero fan. I think he's one of the better players in the country, and I think he's going to be a top 5 pick in this upcoming draft if he decides to come out, which I'd be shocked if he didn't. But yeah, I just like him. I also like the other kid, AJ Griffin, who's Adrian Griffin's son, who's is a former pro and now he's assistant coach in the league. So he's really good. So they just have a lot of talent on that team. So I think they're going to wind up overwhelming them. And then I'm going to pick. I'll pick Arizona in that second game. Again, I really haven't seen much of Arizona, but they've been pretty consistent all year, and it seems like their new coach kind of has stirred things in the right direction, and he's part of that Gonzaga coaching tree. So he's used to playing, having deep playoff runs. So I don't think he'll be overwhelmed by the moment, even though he's sliding over, one seat. It's and there's a difference between that second seat and the first seat. But they've been playing relatively well. Although they survived They survived that last game. So I think that was their scare, and I think they'll come out really focused tonight. And I think that they're going to handle their business.
And to that point, I'm looking at the spread. The Duke game is an even game according to Vegas, and Arizona's favored by 1.5. So by all accounts, we should have some good late games. Gonzaga has got it back to within 6. I believe it was as Brandon was saying that I think he's saying he's in Arkansas. So I can only imagine how they're feeling right now.
They are lit.
Yeah, I had a friend that actually played football there.
Okay.
I don't know, 10, 12 years ago when Darren McFadden was there. He came in right after him. Running back. So I know he's super excited. But it looks like Gonzaga might have just got an and one. So maybe we were a little presumptuous.
Maybe. It's all depending on if they can hold on. But I'm gonna be honest with you, that looks like a continuation. They call it.
Did they not give? It don't look like they gave it.
Yeah, I don't know if they.
He didn't put the ball back down though.
He didn't, but he got fouled in active shooting, and so normally, on a college, once you get fouled in the active shooting, then it's usually 2 shots. You don't get to finish the play. Yeah. So I think it's going to be. Yeah, I think it's going to be on the floor, but I think they're in the. Are they in the bonus? Yeah, they're in the bonus, so he's going to be shooting. I mean, he's going to be shooting free throws, but of course, you'd rather have a 3-point play than a 2. Yeah.
So, man, in the NBA, that's an and one all day.
Oh, for sure, all day long.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case, Anthony. It's just been one of those situations where matchups matter, and if you don't play through your strength, like Gonzaga wasn't able to have Chet for most of the game, if you have an advantage, you don't take advantage of it. You find yourself in these predicaments, which I'm actually pretty happy about. There haven't been many blowouts in this tournament at all, which is somewhat uncharacteristic because there's usually a couple. And most games have been pretty competitive, especially in the last round, 2 or 3 rounds. So I'm with you. I think you said Arizona and Duke. I picked Duke to be in my Final Four last episode, so I'm obviously going to pick Duke here again. And I think I might have picked Arizona too. So I'm gonna go with Arizona. But I am more concerned really with Arizona than I am with Duke. I think Duke is going to be well coached. I think the Coach K situation is definitely something that's going to keep them highly motivated, game in and game out. So that's where I'm leaning. And it does look like it was considered a 2-shot foul.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, hopefully he makes them, but that could have been a big swing there.
Yeah. But so we'll definitely still going to be a 2. Either way, is still a 2-possession game. So this game is far from over.
Yeah, he knocked them down nice and clean.
He did.
But in relation to that and some drama and things like that, we do want to pivot to the NBA because there's a lot that's been going on, a lot of controversy, a lot of infighting, if you will. And last night, the Miami Heat had quite the dust up on the sideline. We've seen this happen, in sports over time, but a team that's in first place typically should be a little bit more unified, especially when seemingly all the captains and leadership on the team are the ones that can't control themselves. So given that it was Haslam, Butler, and even Eric Spoelstra who made light of it in the press conference after the game, is this a big deal or no big deal for you, Kenny?
I think it remains to be seen, just based off of how, Coach Spoelstra is downplaying. I don't think that it's a big deal. But I think that, when I say it remains to be seen, I think what we have to see is how they react to it or what happens after this. But, like you said, these are things that happen. We know Jimmy Butler is he's a emotional guy. We've seen him at other stops where he's had some dust ups or he's had some confrontations or whatever the case may be. So, I think that it was one of those things that, what's up, Mike? I think it's one of those things where, just the heat of the moment where guys kind of, got a little carried away. And, the funny part of it to me was Jimmy Butler. I said he was backpedaling like a cornerback when Udonis Haslam started coming towards him. He didn't want no part of UD, and I don't blame him one bit. But again, I think it's remains to be seen. I think it was a byproduct of them they've been struggling lately. So I'm sure frustrations are starting to set in, and so I just think that probably caused it to set this thing off. But again, I think we'll see, because it could go one or two ways. It could be either where they rally from this, or they just totally fall apart. So that's why I say it remains to be seen. They could we'll see how they react to it and what it does for them, and then that will tell whether or not that it was a big deal or not a big deal.
I agree. Arkansas just missed a free throw, and they did get the rebound after Gonzaga lost it. Oh, no, they're giving Gonzaga the ball.
No, they got it back. Yeah, Nembhard drove to the basket, missed a
it looks like they're going to review the out of bounds. It went out of bounds, and they're going to review it.
Yeah.
But no, I disagree. I think at this point in the season, and I think because of who was involved, I was really shocked and ultimately disappointed in Udonis Haslam. You're a cheerleader. That's your job. You've been getting paid to cheerlead for 4 years. Why are you talking to me, who's been here game in, game out, carrying us to this one team?
But come on, Ray. That guy, he's a pillar of the franchise.
And that's exactly why you shouldn't be talking to me like that in front of people. Don't make me have that conversation. This is a Draymond Green talking to Paul Pierce saying you ain't getting a retirement tour. Bro,
man.
Just sit on the bench, give us your coaching advice, and shut up. You don't need to be coming at me.
But hold up though, Ray. But if the dude is going at your coach, and if he's getting out of pocket, then as a teammate, you guys are supposed to be able to police each other. No,
but that the coach is the coach. The coach Eric can defend himself.
I understand, but then sometimes you need sometimes other teammates got to step in and help, kind of help the situation along. I think that's what he was trying to do. Well,
yeah, but he made it worse.
Until he threatened to get in his mouth.
Right. And now you're threatening to fight me? Now we're not even talking basketball anymore. So that to me is where I have a lot of issues. If it was a basketball critique and you were an actual player that actually plays, Jimmy Butler probably played more minutes in that game than Haslam's played all year.
Probably right.
He's not the right voice for me in that instance. Now, if Tyler Hero or I believe Kyle Lowry or PJ Tucker, okay, I will be willing to listen. But
I'm going to disagree with you. I think that's the reason why Udonis is still on the bench, because his voice carries weight. If his voice didn't carry weight, I don't think he would be on the bench. Because that's a waste of a roster spot.
I agree, but that's the wrong weight that you carry in there. You got to be the encourager, the stabilizing force, not a disrupting force.
Yeah.
Oh, Timmy blows the layup with 20 seconds.
That's it.
With 20
if they
seconds.
make these free throws, it's over.
Wow. It was a great play call. Got a great look.
No, you can't ask for a better look than that.
A layup driving. They let him get away with the hook there.
The little hook, yeah.
Looked like he got a shot.
I think he got a piece of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's great defense. Great defense. Good offense, better defense.
Absolutely.
But no, I think to your point, I do agree with you. I think we will see if this is something that brings them together or if it's something that potentially tears them apart. I just think the timing, the people involved, and the extent to which it went, on top of the fact that they're already struggling, I just think it's a really bad mix of things. And he makes the first free throw, so Arkansas is now up 5. That even a 4-point play can't save you at this point. So we'll see what happens. But I just like I said, the timing is just really, really off to me. And I just think it was uncharacteristic of the people involved. Jimmy Butler, I kind of expect. And Eric Spoelstra also is someone that's pretty even keel. Gonzaga hits
Oh,
a
that's a tough
three.
shot.
Hits a
That's a
falling
tough
three.
shot.
They haven't updated the score for me yet, but I believe it was
Yeah,
a three.
it's 65. Yeah, now they're down 3.
That could have been a foul.
That could have.
That could have been a
Absolutely
full-point play,
could have.
100%.
That absolutely could have.
But
But, you know, a lot of times, though, and I've learned this from my brother who's a referee. Shout out to my brother, Phil. Referees do not want to make those calls down the stretch that are going to have a big impact on the game. Normally, in order for it to be called, it has to be like
blatant.
so yeah, exactly. That anybody, you know, is somewhere you have to call it. If there's any like gray area, they're not gonna call it.
I will say for people that have criticized the refereeing or even said the fix is in, Gonzaga has not gotten the benefit of the doubt on many whistles down the stretch. So I won't say there's been a blatant and obvious miss. I think the 2 fouls I saw on Holmgren definitely changed the dynamic of this game, but I do appreciate that it's not skewed one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I definitely could. I don't know how you don't call contact there. That's a lot of contact.
That's a block. Like he impeded his progress, so you could have called that. But like I said, because
would they have given him the continuation though? Would be the other part.
Exactly. That right. That's the point. Like he was in the midst getting ready to shoot. So there's no guarantee they would have called for 3 shots there. So it worked out.
Gonzaga's in the double bonus, or Arkansas is in the double bonus. So they're guaranteed 2 shots here on out. So a lot less pressure. But moving on from the Miami Heat. And so I'm going to open the floor up to you here, Kenny, but I do want to kind of share some things that I thought were interesting. So I'm going to let you go first on this topic, but then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get your opinion on something.
Okay.
So you are from New York, correct?
Yes, sir.
You are a New York guy. So the lovely mayor there has had quite the year. Has it even been a year since he's been in?
No, he just got in this year.
Yeah. So it's been a heck of a couple months.
I think November. He just got in November.
For this man, and he said a lot of things, and he's changed his mind on a lot of things relatively quickly. And some things he's dragged his feet that maybe he shouldn't have. But what we want to discuss right now is New York City is lifting the mandate on the vaccination for entertainers and athletes. So this is not a widespread removal, and there's been some pushback from police unions and teachers and others. But this is specific to entertainers and athletes. So with that being the case, what a block.
Big time block. That's it.
Game over. Arkansas is moving on. Another great defensive play for them.
Chase down.
Absolutely. But with that, it was almost LeBron-esque. Since he never got to play in the NCAA tournament. But what does this mean for the Nets? We saw KD and Kyrie play, I believe it was last night, and came up short to a Ja-less Memphis team. No shame there. They're 15-2 without Ja. But now that there's been that situation's really been settled, Kyrie will be available as long as he's healthy for the rest of the season and the playoffs. What does this mean for the Nets?
I'm sure it's a relief for them. I'm sure it's, great news for them. They have their second best player, on a full-time basis, except for if they play Toronto. So, I think it's great news. I'm sure everybody in Brooklyn is thrilled about this. But I still think that they still need to have a healthy. I believe they still need to have a healthy Seth Curry. Like as much as they need Kyrie, I think they need a healthy Seth Curry as well because he's that other shooter that they need to help them space the floor. And we kind of seen that, even since he's, been missing in these last few games, that they've really kind of struggled, against, these last few games that they've played. They did pull out that one against Utah, but it kind of been up and down. But again, when you have, and I tweeted this last night, that
And
when
what's your Twitter?
Kyrie
Is that your Twitter for the people? Coach
yes,
underscore Any
yes,
Kenny?
yes. Everybody follow me on Twitter. That's me. That's
And
my
is
Twitter.
one N in Any Kenny or that's a spelling error?
Yep.
Okay.
Nope, that's right. And that's everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok,
Okay.
all that. So anyway, but
Kenny
I
okay.
had tweeted that when you have Kyrie and KD playing together, you have two unstoppable players on the court at any time. So it's hard. Like there's not too many teams. I'm trying to think. I don't think that maybe maybe Philly, Embiid and Harden. But I don't think that there's too many teams. I can't think of any other teams that has two guys that are literally that can score at any time that they want to. I
From
think the
anywhere.
only challenge, what's that?
I was gonna say, and from anywhere.
Yeah, from anywhere on the court and against, and the other thing is too, and it doesn't matter if they're being contested or not. Like they get their shot off against anyone at any time, and them being contested doesn't affect them in any way, shape, or form. So I just think that it's a tough call to try to hold those guys down. If you're in the playoffs, to try to hold those guys down, and you have to be able to score. We saw the reason why Memphis was able to win that game last night is they were able to score because
Devin Bain went off in the fourth quarter.
Exactly. Because the Nets aren't a great defensive team, so they rely on being able to score. They are trying to outscore you every night. They're not trying to beat you on the defensive end. They're trying to beat you by scoring and trying to wear you down to you can't keep up with them. Getting up and down the court. So I think of course it helps them, but they still like I said, they're still going to need Stephen Curry. We don't know what not Stephen Curry, Seth Curry. We still got to wait to see what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. Does he come back? Is it even worth it to bring him back at this point? I don't know. But according to Steve Nash, that he would find a way to get him in the lineup if he's able to play. But shoot, if you get Ben back and Ben's healthy, and you got that guy that's going to be a stopper on the perimeter with that length, man, God help you, because again, when Seth Curry's on the court, you got three guys that you got to guard all the way to the 3-point line. Then, you add in an Andre Drummond that you could jump it down to and throw lobs to, that's cleaning up the glass. Then you got a slasher and Bruce Brown that just knows how to, that's what I'm saying, Anthony. Slasher that just knows how to find spots. He just knows how to play off those guys. He reminds me a little bit of like a poor man's Sean Marion, where you don't have to run plays for him, and he just figures out ways to impact the game on the offensive end. So like they're going to be a tough out. Even if it's not this year, like going forward, that's going to be a tough team to have to deal with. So it's going to be, interesting to see how this is going to impact the rest of the East, because if they're clicking on all cylinders, they could beat anybody in the Eastern Conference. So, again, it's all going to depend on what happens with Ben, if he's going to be able to come back. And even without Ben, I still think that they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think to your point, you started by saying they're not a good defensive team. And I think that's where Ben Simmons would become significantly valuable.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Is when they got to play a Milwaukee. When you have to play even a Miami, and even for that matter, Philadelphia. I know we saw Kyrie getting James Harden in that first return game, but you don't want Kyrie having to expend that much energy, especially in a 7-game series.
Right.
So when you can throw a Ben Simmons at Giannis, and Giannis might still get his points, but if it's less efficient, and now all of a sudden you need Chris Middleton to consistently give you 25, Drew Holiday to consistently give you 20, 25, that's a whole different series. So I think that's really the issue. And I think that becomes what's the bigger problem when he's having a herniated disc in his back, is you got to be able to get down in that stance. And you got to potentially be able to hit the floor. And I think that
For sure.
poses lots of problems with that particular injury. And just to kind of give you guys an update, Michigan had got a great steal in the backcourt, but they had we just saw in Gonzaga missed layup. Michigan looks like they missed 2 layups. They're down 6 with 14 seconds left, and they just fouled.
And Villanova has the ball, so this one looks like it's in hand. But I did want to say one thing about that whole, the whole back thing. From what I understand, getting that epidural shot, apparently that does wonders. So, if it's able to work and he's able to get back out there on the floor, he could definitely give them some minutes. I don't know. I'm sure that he'll be limited in terms of his minutes, but even if he could give you, 10 to 15 minutes of he's just coming out there and just being like a bloodhound, and you just stick him on whoever's rolling that night, and you got him for 15 minutes to, just be able to guard, like that would help.
No, I definitely think it would help. I guess my bigger concern becomes when he hasn't had any game time to try and get in any kind of shape.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, one, there's only one way to get in basketball shape, and that's to play basketball.
For sure.
And 2, the other issue that you run into is soft tissue injuries. And calves and hamstrings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you automatically you show up in the playoffs, it's a different level of intensity.
Definitely.
So I just think it's a lot of potential uphill issues. I agree with you, Damian. I agree. I said that earlier to start the show. I think Miami's in a lot of trouble, not just because of the fight, but the East is just it's tough.
Stacked.
And we see
we had that debate before, like top to bottom. I definitely believe the East is the better conference.
And it's just such an interesting dynamic because we saw Toronto lose the other night to a relatively bad team, but then they bounce back and they're dominating Cleveland. We've seen them play really well. So you never know on a given night who you're going to get out of the East either. Like the talent is definitely there. The Bulls, I don't know if Mike's still on, are losing to the Pelicans. And I don't think Brandon Ingram is playing. He is not. But they've let Devontae Graham get 18. So the East is just tough. It's going to be tough. And I think that also poses the problem if you're Brooklyn is you're going to be in a playoff game every game from here on out. And can you sustain the momentum of that for a long run? So,
sure.
Yeah, you might get to the play-in, but right now, when I look at it, they are currently, after the loss the other night, they're in the 8th seed. So they would have to play, I think the 7 and 8 play, or does the 7 play to 10?
Yeah, I think the 7 plays to 10, and then the 8 plays to 9.
Okay, that's what I thought. So they would be looking at Charlotte, who on any given night, if you get Oubre, Rozier, and LaMelo, and they go off, it can be a long night for you. So definitely interesting to see what comes of it. My second point that I wanted to make on this, and it's basketball, it's sports related, but it's not sports related. And I want to get Kenny. I want you to give me your thoughts on this. So, upon doing further research on this lifting of the vaccine mandate, I watched an interview, and I think we talked about it on here, where Eric Adams said he was giving a speech somewhere, and I don't know if you call him a heckler, but someone in the audience was like, "Let Kyrie play."
Yes.
His response was, "Well, he can play if he's vaccinated." That was maybe a week ago, max 2 weeks ago. Kyrie has sat out the entire year up until this point, faced tons of ridicule and criticism for his decision. And then a week later, Eric Adams changes his mind and lifts it just for athletes and entertainers. So to me, where this gets, I don't even know the right word. I don't know if it's tricky. I don't know if it's nasty. I don't know if it's corrupt. But doing further research, I found that first I'll say baseball season's coming. And in my experience, baseball isn't necessarily an urban sport. Baseball tends to cater to a predominantly white audience in America. And so what I saw was from different reports, a lot of the Mets players are unvaccinated. What I've also heard is potentially Anthony. I'm getting there.
There's another element to it. I'm waiting to see if you're going to bring it up.
Aaron Judge, by all accounts, is unvaccinated. They asked him recently how they feel about it or about vaccination, and he completely dodged the question.
Right.
He didn't Aaron Rodgers it, but he ain't want nothing to do with that question.
Right.
So what I saw upon further research is the owner of the Mets, and I don't have his name in front of me.
Steve Cohen. I got you.
Steve Cohen gave $1.5 million to Eric Adams' campaign earlier this year. I'm sorry, last year, the summer of last year. And then the announcement that they just had was at Citi Field. So to me, baseball's on the horizon. In a week or two, there's a ton of money involved in baseball, in these contracts, in the big-time players. And I don't know which Mets players, but I've heard there's a number of them, and the Yankees players. And now, conveniently, they've decided to roll back this mandate just in time for baseball season, but not allow it to be rolled back for everyone else. So I've laid my foundation. Anthony, I agree 100% with you. I think it's a racism issue because the sports cater to two completely different dynamics, but I also see it as a class system issue. And personally, I feel like Kyrie has the money. If all it would have took was $1.5 million, he could have paid that $17 million that he lost and just paid off Eric Adams. But I think that's where the race component comes in, is he wouldn't take Kyrie's money. But since he took Cohen's money, magically he justified this decision. And I'll leave it at that for now. Kenny, your thoughts?
No, I think you covered it all. I think the biggest thing is everything speaks to the fact that that there's a definite money, and I always say, and I got it from I think, what movie was it? Casino? Yeah. Whenever you want to find answers, just follow the money. The money will tell you, give you all the answers that you're looking for. And so I don't think it's any coincidence the fact that, like you laid it out, the fact that Steve Cohen was a huge contributor to Eric Adams' campaign, and you have this announcement at the stadium. I don't think it's any coincidence. And also, I heard as well that Randy Levine, who's part of the Yankees front office, he has a big say, or he has a big influence in local politics, in New York politics as well. So I don't think it's any coincidence that this happened right around the time that baseball season was about to kick off. Because again, not only would you have the situation to where the playoffs, this is right around the time of the playoffs where you want to get all of the butts in the seats. So we know that if there's anyone that's going to put butts in the seats, that is, Kyrie Irving. So it's convenient for that. And then, the kickoff of baseball season, where you want the fans to come out to see all of those players, because that, baseball already has a challenge in terms of, it's definitely the least popular sport out of the major sports. So they already have an issue of their following, and I believe that attendance had been down over the last season. So they definitely didn't want the issue of having guys that are unvaccinated be sitting out, having to sit out, because that would again affect the money, affect the bottom line. So I don't think there's any coincidence. I think there's a whole lot of money. There's a whole lot of corruption in this. I shouldn't say corruption, but there's a whole lot of money that's helping to drive these decisions. And I think it's sad, to your point, that if that was the case, that if Kyrie wanted, and here's another thing that another part of it that's really crazy was Kyrie was a big supporter of Eric Adams being his campaign. He was on the Zoom calls and things of that nature. So, the fact of the matter is that you do this now, to me, it stinks. I can't put it any other way. It stinks. So I just think that there's a lot of questions, and the fact that there's some money involved tells me that there's definitely some suspect activity going on. But at the end of the day, I'm happy that Kyrie is back and he's able to play the home games. I'm happy that his fans get to see him play. I'm happy that his family gets to see him play, because I'm sure his dad was tired of flying around the country to go see his son play. So I'm just glad for everybody involved that everything has worked out, but it's definitely some suspect activity that goes along with it.
No, I definitely agree. I think the overwhelming factor is we'll get to see all the best players play.
Right.
How we got there, I think, is what's really problematic for me. Mm-hmm. And the hypocrisy of not allowing everyone to do it. Like, that to me is just the way this, and again, we're not going to have a COVID conversation, but just the way in which politics has played a role in this whole last couple of years is just confusing. From Kyrie being able to sit on the bench or sit in the stadium but not play. Then they find him for going into the locker room at a home game, but he's in the locker room playing on away games, but then he can't play at the Garden. Like, this has just been a disaster. And for whatever reason, he is fumbling this. And I would be surprised. We saw what happened with Cuomo and the investigation and things that came from there. If the right people cared enough, I feel like there should be an investigation. Something is wrong here in how this is happening and how quickly things transpire in this situation. But at the end of the day, I am happy that Kyrie can play. The Nets can have some solidity in their situation. I would love for the money that Kyrie lost and some of these people that were fired to get an opportunity to get that back.
That's the biggest part to me, man, is that those people that lost their jobs, like, why did we have this? And and this is a whole nother conversation, so I'll be quick. Why do we have this just for the entertainers and sports figures, but not the city workers? I think that's totally unfair.
Yeah, agreed. And Dustin, I think you could say that about a lot of teams.
And that's not fair, though, because Gonzaga has been in the finals. I think it's 4 out of the last, and in the championship game, or the 4 out of the last, 2 of the last 5 years or something like that. So that's not fair.
They went the one and done route, with Chet, which they typically have stayed away from. And
Jalen Suggs last year.
That's true. That is true. So I think the bigger colleges have gotten more into that, and in a lot of ways, it hasn't typically paid off. So
it's hard, man. It's hard,
it is, especially with kids.
Yeah.
So
and it's funny you mentioned that, because me and my uncle was talking about this, and because like I told you, he was on the staff with Kentucky, and we talked about this, and he said the issue, and he made a great point, is that the issue with the one and done guys is you never know when they're going to have that young moment. When your roster is primarily, or if it's the majority of comprised of those guys, you don't know when they're going to have a moment and how many of those guys are going to have that moment at that same particular time. So you don't know how it's going to impact your roster. Then you got to figure out with all of those guys, all of them have aspirations for being pros. So are they going to buy in if they're not getting their shots? Are they going to buy in if they're not getting their minutes? Like, it's a whole lot of dynamics that go along with coaching one and done. So I give credit to, especially the John Calipari's of the world, and even, Coach K. Like, it's a tough job to coach those one and dones.
Yeah. And again, Dustin, I'm going to have to push back on the Cupcake Conference, because we've seen SEC teams, we've seen ACC teams, we've seen
Definitely
Premier Conference teams go down early. I just think it's one of those things. I think Gonzaga has actually probably been one of the more consistent teams, powerhouses. Kansas has done fairly well. We've seen UNC was down for a while. They seem to be back.
And wasn't the Big Ten like 0-something in the tournament, like one of the big conferences got off to like a 3 or 0-4 start to start the tournament, I want to say. So you can't
I think you're
necessarily,
right.
being in a Power Five conference doesn't guarantee you a long tournament run. We've seen that.
So it just like you said, on any given Sunday or Saturday, it can happen, and we're here. Like tomorrow, we got Iowa State at an 11, Miami at a 10, UNC. It's not, actually a lot of ACC teams in here as I look through who's left. But
Big Ten, St. Peter's and Purdue.
yeah, Kansas is a Big 12, UCLA's Pac-12, Iowa State's Big 10, I believe.
No, they're Big 12.
Are the Big 12? Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. So yeah, that's really ACC and Big 12 for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a couple SEC left in Arkansas who got through, but it's spread for the most part. So I just think homegrown getting in foul trouble and the tenacious. We saw down the stretch of the Arkansas game, there was a bunch of defensive plays made, and that's what we saw. And we talked about the Nets and Grizzlies; they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
stop. And at some point, you
Right.
got to get stops, and
Yep.
Arkansas got the stops. Villanova got the stops when there was sometimes, and you got to not just get the stop, but get the rebound because we see
Yep.
that too, where you'll get the stop, miss shot, and somebody get an offensive rebound or something like that, and puts it in. But again, I know this is a fun night. We got the NCAA going on, we got the NBA going, but there's just some things that we got to discuss. And Kenny, I'm going to want your take on another potentially controversial topic. So definitely share where you feel comfortable. But in a surprise move, I didn't know was coming. A young lady in the Deshaun Watson case, I guess, took the case to another county. I think it's Brazoria County. And they presented to another grand jury who ultimately rejected and refused to take the case. To me, that's another endorsement towards innocence. I know this doesn't prove innocence, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful of any group of people, but two different grand juries have said we're not even willing to take this to trial. However, between the first decision and this decision, an ESPN reporter by the name of Molly Karam, who has been very outspoken about women's issues and her issue with certain people and things like that, which is absolutely her right, was very critical of the way in which the Browns handled the Deshaun Watson situation. And I did not know the way the contract was structured, but I personally don't have a problem with it. And so we can get into that here. And Mike, absolutely, we'll be on fast break tonight, getting into all things basketball. So for you guys that are listening right now, tune in tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern here on ASAP Network. It's going to be a great time. I'm going to educate some people on basketball like I do on this here show. But getting back to Deshaun Watson, she made the statement that because his contract is structured that next year he only gets paid $1 million in base salary, that was a slap in the face to women around the world. And my issue is that I think I had this conversation on here or it might have been on my podcast, and so I apologize. When does innocence until guilty matter? Like, where does that come in? Because to me, what you're saying is this man did something wrong, and the fact that his contract is structured in a way that if he gets suspended, which to me also would be crazy since he already had to sit out a year, but if he gets suspended, it's a slap in the face because they made a decision to take care of their franchise quarterback. But he hasn't been found guilty of anything, and they aren't even willing to go to trial. So kind of with that premise, and you can add or take away what you want from that, Kenny, what are your thoughts on the news and how they report things, and specifically her statement towards him, given the facts we currently have?
I think that I think what she was saying was a slap in the face was the actual punishment itself. I think that she was saying that the fact that that his punishment is only 6 games is a slap in the face to women, because I forgot the thing that she was comparing it to. Man,
So
I wish
they
I.
said he's getting 6 games because I didn't hear
No,
that.
I'm saying so. She was saying that if he gets suspended and he only gets 6 games, that it's a slap in the face to him. Because because she was saying that sexual assault should carry a higher punishment level. I guess that was her premise. was that if sexual assault should carry a higher premise, a higher punishment level. Like she felt like he should be suspended for the whole year. And I wish I knew the other things she was comparing it to, because she did make a valid comparison that it was something else that you could get punished for, and that's what it was. Deflategate. She was comparing it to Deflategate. So, a guy deflates footballs and he gets 6 games, but a guy assaults women and he only gets 6 games. That's what she was comparing it to. So I think that she kind of had a valid point there, that there should be a higher level of punishment. If and again, to your point, that if he is found guilty, I think that's the bottom line of it. So that's what she was saying, and I kind of get where she was coming from, but then at the same time, that this has to be proven that he was actually guilty of these crimes. And like you said, so the fact that he hasn't been criminally prosecuted, then we can't just punish him for what we think that he did, if they're not going to if he's not going to face criminal charges for it. Now, what happens in civil court, that's a whole nother matter. But we can't punish him for something that we think that he did if it's not proven that he did it. So I understand where you're coming from on that, from that segment, or from that perspective, I should say. So I just think, it's a tough call, and they did say something about so let me ask you this question, so making sure I'm understanding this right. This second prosecution that was sparked, or that was referred to today, that they threw that one out, because I read something to where there was another case that he was going to be that he was going to potentially be prosecuted for. Was that thrown out?
Yeah, that's the same one, and I can give you the tweet about it. And then I did look up some stuff, so I do want to respond to kind of the piece that you reported on. But basically what was said was by Jake Trotter, who's a reputable source.
Definitely tapped in for sure.
Brazoria County grand jury has declined to indict Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. The DA's office confirms to Mike Rothstein statement from DA's office coming. So I'm not sure what the following statement was, but that was the second case. It was not a new case. It was a woman from the original case, but she, I guess, was trying to get another county. And they also shot it down.
I gotcha.
So in relation to Molly, and this is where, and like I said, we can agree to disagree. I think for me, it's problematic that the NFL has a precedent. You don't have to like the precedent, but the precedent has been set. So for you to now come out and criticize him, I don't understand. He didn't make the rule. He didn't set the precedent. He's potentially going to come under fire of this. And I believe those are for like domestic violence, and maybe sexual assault is included, but by all accounts, he doesn't qualify for that.
Yeah, so I think the issue was with the NFL, though, more so than Watson.
But so that's why I wanted to go back and read the quotes, and maybe so. So I'm reading a report here, and it says the Browns have made a mockery of any punishment handed down to Deshaun Watson by restructuring his contract. He will get paid just over $1 million in the first year of the deal. That would be the check that sees the effects of a suspension. He would have $229 million more guaranteed to him that the league wouldn't be able to touch. And then in quotes, it says, if he's losing these cases, he should not be playing a full season, maybe 2 seasons. I have a problem with that because they've already established what the rule is. Like, you don't got to like it, but it's been that way for a while. Like,
and not only that, but you can't suspend a guy for a whole season for losing a civil case. Like, that's not that. Yeah, that to me, a civil case is totally different from a criminal case. Like, there's no a civil case is what you do when you can't get what you want criminally, or when a case doesn't go in the way that you want it to go criminally, then you go to civil court. So, but that doesn't admit any type of guilt. So
Right.
I can't go along with that being suspended for a year for him being losing in civil court. That's totally different.
100%. That's why they gave him $1 million, Stephen A., because they know punishment might come down. $1 million when you're about to get 229 million. That's a slap in the face to all women everywhere! Exclamation point. So I think she's off base personally for a lot of the reasons we've discussed. The problem that I also have is no one can say that to her because she's a woman. It's on Disney, and that's not the stand. Disney has enough issues with other things and people walking out and now and them coming out against the law in Florida. So they don't need one community that's a very strong community and then to alienate another community that's also very strong, which women are. But I just think she's off base. And I think it's unfortunate we live in a world that journalism can't go both ways. She can stand up and say these things, and I think she's wrong. This man, as of now, has done nothing wrong. Now, was he maybe promiscuous? Was he maybe reckless? Flying out a bunch of different women and you're worth a lot of money? That's probably not smart, but it ain't criminal. It ain't assault. And I would love for the facts of the case to come out because my question has been, I'm guessing he paid for these women to come. Did they give the money back? So if he paid for a service, did you give the money back because you felt a certain way? Or did you keep the money and still feel a certain way? Like, I just think there's a lot of holes, and it's one of those issues that you can't really speak about and challenge because it's not popular. But I think it's really unfortunate that statistically, he will never recover from the season that he lost in the middle of his prime. Even without DeAndre Hopkins, he led the league in passing yards. So statistically, in the era we're in 20 years from now, he could be looked very differently than he could have been had he been able to play this year when you look at stats. That's something, regardless of what comes out, he'll never get back. The money, I'm glad he'll have that personally. Hopefully, from what I've seen, he typically does good things with it. I think the people of Cleveland will benefit from it, from what I've seen him do for the communities he's in. But we talked about two different topics. I just wish news coverage was a little less biased and would hold people to the fire for their statements that maybe aren't as great as they should be.
No, I agree with you. I think that what was he supposed to? I think that, to your point, I think that was a little reckless. That, like, what was they not supposed to pay the man because he has these civil cases that he's facing? Like, there's no criminal element that's in question. There's no criminal issues that we know that he's going to have to deal with. So were they supposed to not pay him because he had these civil cases? Like, I don't, I think that was a little reckless. And just playing devil's advocate, she's like you said, she's always been one that's been outspoken about women's issues, and she might have been a little emotional and might have kind of spoken a little out of turn, or maybe kind of went a little too far because she got emotional. So I may give her a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for that. But like you, at the end of the day, if she had to, if she read this back or if she had another opportunity to speak on this, I don't think that she would have went this far.
Time will tell.
And absolutely.
At some point,
because we have to wait and see how these cases get adjudicated to see how she speaks on it going forward. So yeah, definitely.
And Damien, to your point, my issue, I think, is going to be more, and they can factor in off the field stuff, but I think my issue is more in statistics. If he's able to just bounce back, I think obviously has the talent. I think he's in a good situation. He's still really young. Absolutely. I don't think this case, especially the way it's turning out where there's no criminal aspect of it, I don't think that'll have an impact. I think his issues will be he's potentially going to retire at a time where a lot of top guys are retiring. He's going to be retiring in maybe the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, that this era, Justin Herbert. So if 2 or 3 of them retire at the same time, only 5 get in, I believe. So I think that becomes an issue. He may have to wait depending on how many of them win Super Bowls. Right now, I think Mahomes is the only young guy with 1. But he's not going to have the MVP that Mahomes has. Lamar Jackson has an MVP. So it's just going to be a tough group. Definitely. But I don't think as of now, I don't think the off field will be the problem. What do you think, Kenny?
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. And just as kind of a parallel, I think about, remember Kobe Bryant back in the day, he had his issue with sexual assault. And, no one ever really brought that up against him, when it came time for him to go into the Hall of Fame. And maybe partially because of his unfortunate passing. It might have, been thought to be in poor taste, but even so, I don't even, think even if he did, even if he was alive, I don't think that would have been an issue to him getting into the Hall of Fame. So I think you make a great point that if he puts up the numbers and he has the resume for it, I don't think that there's going to be any issue for him getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of someone else, from a basketball standpoint, that I guess could have a Hall of Fame case, but Shaq and Chuck have both been somewhat critical of him and his ability to make other players better, is Donovan Mitchell. We saw the playoff series versus him in Denver in the bubble, which was just phenomenal basketball between him and Jamal Murray going back and forth. But for whatever reason, Utah has continued to come up small. They haven't got it done on big stages. He had an opportunity at the end of that series to hit a shot and he missed it. Rudy Gobert has, had his issues. Joe Ingles has been hurt and now since traded. And the team currently is sliding. So my question for you is, and there's been a number of rumbling reports about issues with Mitchell and Gobert, but if you're Utah and you're not a free agent destination, do you trade Donovan Mitchell? What do you do with Donovan Mitchell at this point? Since seemingly it's not working.
And I kind of talked about this the other day. I'm not sure if I'm not Donovan Mitchell, I may be the one that asks for a trade because, like we were talking about, I believe it was on Monday. I think the issue is that it just don't have enough pieces around him for them to really make a deep playoff run. Because, like we was talking about, earlier in the show, we were talking about, how with Brooklyn, you got 2 guys that at any point that can score or that could get their own shot. Besides Donovan Mitchell, who else on that team that you can really say is, somebody that could score at will at any given point in time? Like, Clarkson?
That's where I was going to go. I don't think he's
that's about maybe, but is that more of a byproduct? Is his scoring more of a byproduct of him coming off the bench and playing against second unit guys?
That's a good point.
So Mike Conley,
no, not as a scorer, not consistent.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Gobert, definitely not. What's my man?
They got
Bogdanovich. Here and there. He's kind of, he's hit and miss as well. Like he'll have a 20-point night, and then he'll have like a 8-point night. And I know that for a fact because I got him in fantasy, so he aggravates me. So I just think that they have that problem. They have that problem of that they don't really have consistent scoring that they can count on night to night. And I think that's what it really shows itself in the playoffs because, like I said, when it comes to playoff times, teams know, each other's tendencies, the things that you want to do, the things that the other team does well and what they don't do well. And then at some point, it just comes to a matter of a one-on-one matchup and can you beat your guy? factor. Can you make a play for yourself, or can you make a play for your teammates? And I think the problem with Utah is they only got one guy like that in Donovan Mitchell. So maybe, from Utah's perspective, maybe you need to trade Donovan Mitchell to see if you could get some more pieces. But will you be able to get? You're not going to get two. You're not going to get two franchise pieces for him. You're only going to get one franchise piece and maybe a draft pick, and hope that it's a lottery pick that you could kind of hit on. So I don't know, like even if you are Utah and you try to trade him for some more pieces, do you get the type of pieces that is going to, help you be competitive or help you be able to make a deep playoff run? So I think they're kind of in a
Yeah. No, I agree. And Anthony, the Texas Tech Duke game has kicked off.
Struggling early.
3 turnovers early, having obviously a trouble scoring because it's hard to score when you don't even get shots up. But right. Texas Tech definitely looks like they're motivated. Duke not a great start by any stretch.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're letting them play now.
Have to call a timeout.
It looks like it's 10-2.
Yep, it's a timeout.
So
yep.
2 points in almost 5 minutes into the game is not a good start.
Yeah.
But to your point, I don't think Donovan Mitchell's a 1. Like he's not a Kyrie Irving. He's not a superstar. He's a very good piece. He's Bradley Beal, for what it's worth. He can get hot. He can go get you 50 maybe in a night, but he doesn't play great defense. He doesn't do a great job of getting other people involved. He's a scorer. So if I'm Utah, I think the league values Donovan definitely more than I do. I think you can package him and, maybe try and get some other people and some draft picks from a potential contender. Maybe you talk to Boston and see if you can get Jaylen Brown back. Maybe you talk to someone in Charlotte and you can try and get some of their young pieces back. I think there's young talent available that you could get for Donovan Mitchell, but I don't think he's the answer there, and that union is not working. So to your point, it sucks because it's definitely a risk. You still got to sell tickets, but I don't think he's it. So I think they should move off of him, but I don't know if you can without getting something back for sure.
But if you and to your point, and Damian, to your point, if you trade him for Lillard, then you're still in the same situation. You got one guy that you don't have another, another franchise guy that you could put alongside him, because we know this is the team up era. You got to have at least 2 superstars on your team in order to be able to be competitive in this league, or 3 stars. You got to have at least 2 superstars or 3 stars in order to be competitive in this league. So I don't know, like if you're trading for Jaylen Brown, and you trade for Jaylen Brown in a draft pick, if you're getting Boston's draft pick and they go into the playoffs, that's not going to be a lottery pick. So that's going to be, a mid to a late first round pick. So how much does that really help you?
Yeah. And I would have to kind of look at the landscape a little bit more. Philly might have some excess. We're trying to get off of Harris, but the same thing, the draft pick wouldn't be great. So no,
maybe you trade for Zion, and
if he don't like New Orleans, he definitely ain't gonna like Utah.
I know. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to do that, I think that may be a team where if you trade with them, maybe that could be potentially a lottery pick. But even they're battling for a playoff spot now since CJ's got in there. Gotten CJ, they've really kind of started coming on. So I don't even know if you do that, if that nets you a lottery pick in the trade.
Or actually, Damien, to your point with Portland, do you maybe trade him for Anthony Simons and maybe another young talent and then some draft picks as well? So maybe you get a lesser player back, but you can also potentially get better picks back. And then Portland feels the need of putting somebody to play with Lillard. who I think Mitchell will be an upgrade from CJ. Granted, he's looked good in New Orleans, but I think Mitchell's definitely an upgrade. But if I can send him there, maybe get Simons and some young talent back, because I don't think those two can play together. I don't think Lillard and Simons will play good together. So one of them, I believe, has to go long term and even short term. So I think that could be an option.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a market for him. There's a lot of places I think Mitchell can fit. It'll just be a matter of getting the right package for him.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where if you're going to do that, you're going to need a third team to get involved. Like, I don't think you can do that straight up with one team. You're going to have to add another team to get that draft pick that you want. Maybe a team like a Houston, you get them involved and get one of their draft picks and make it a 3-team. Maybe you get maybe you get back a Jaylen Brown and a Kevin Porter Jr. And a draft pick. That may be a package like that.
No, for sure. So could definitely be a lot there. But you mentioned Zion, and there were reports that came out, I believe it was mid to late last week, that he was back with the team, but he was not going to be back this year. And then we see this ridiculous off the backboard between the legs dunk that makes him look pretty healthy. I saw him playing. It wasn't Ed O'Bannon. He was playing. I forget who it was. He was playing one-on-one and just dominating.
That was Corey Brewer.
Corey Brewer, that's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't great defense, but Brewer, he's a long guy, and he was just muscling through, dunking like he looks perfectly fine. So I don't understand what's happening here. Like, is this tape putting out just for people to say, hey, I'm back, I'm healthy, but I don't want to play for this team? Because he looks healthy enough to play. And you're in a playoff run where Ingram's out, so you could use another player. We saw Chris Paul, I think, is supposed to be back tonight. I haven't checked if he was back playing. But this is the time.
Supposed to be back tonight.
And he is back. He's played 13 minutes. He only has 2 points, but he has 7 assists. So this is the time you want to integrate people for the playoff run. So it would make sense that if he's healthy, you definitely want to bring him back. You want to jump the Lakers for that last spot after you just lost to him. And I think you play him 2 more times. So I don't understand why the video comes out after you just said he's not coming out. Like, do you have any insight or what's happening here?
No, I can just go by what I've, I was watching First Take, and they were talking about it, and I think Stephen A. made a great point. I think this is probably what's going on. I think this is Zion pushing back like that. He wants to play, and the Pelicans are holding him back. So I think he put that video out to, kind of force their hand and kind of push them to see, because it's one of those things to where, and this is the kind of like the steps in terms of rehab. First they start with, non-contact, then, you shoot stationary, then you're playing one-on-one, then you go from one-on-one to 3-on-3, then you go from 3-on-3 to 5-on-5, and then you're full contact and you're full go. So he's kind of at that beginning stages of the rehab, of the on-court stuff. So maybe he feels like, man, I'm past this one-on-one, I'm ready to move to the next step. So let me show these people, that I still got the bunnies, I still got the explosion. And maybe this will kind of speed up the process. So when he said that kind of made sense to me. And I think it's the other part is that he's just he wants out of there. Like, he's just showing, and this is just another example of him and the organization being at odds. So I think this is another issue, or this is another situation as to where he's trying to force his hand and trying to, show teams, and also show teams that, look, if you're going to trade for me, here you go. There's no reason for you not to come get me. I got my bounce. I got my explosion. So you don't have to, if there's any questions about my health, I'm showing you that I'm healthy. So I think it's one. I think it's those two things that's playing, a factor in him doing this, and it's a shame because I don't, honestly, I don't understand it. Like, if I'm, we talked about this before. Like, if I'm New Orleans, I want to get him on the court for one or two things. Either, even if I want to keep him, I want to put him on the court to see how he plays with CJ and how he plays with Brandon Ingram. And if I'm trying to trade him, then I'm putting him on the court so I can showcase him to show other teams that he's healthy and that that you can make a deal for him. So I don't get this at all.
And the other part to that is, and depending on where they would fall in the standings, if you can mess around and get to, and I think it might be difficult in the first round because it looks like they would be. Yeah, no, they're a ways out.
Because what
they would either
9 or 10.
Yeah, I was thinking 9 or 10, but I was saying if they get in as the 7 or 8 seed, and I was saying if they could if they could have found a way with those three to match up with Golden State, I think they'd have a great shot. But I think either way it'd be Phoenix or Memphis, and I think that would be tough. Although Zion, Ingram, and McCollum versus Memphis, I think it could get
interesting. No doubt.
It could get interesting.
No doubt
definitely, no doubt. So if that's the case, and we haven't heard any reports, I had my issues with David Griffin before. Like, this is just idiotic. Like, I have no idea why you wouldn't.
Makes absolutely no sense.
Like, what are we doing here? Are we playing for draft picks? And to your point, there's no downside to bringing him back if he's ready to play.
Right.
Especially when he looks like that. Because that was impressive. I don't care if it was with no defense.
Right. Like, if any times you're throwing it off the backboard and putting it between your legs, like, that's impressive.
Yeah. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. If it's a team thing, then yeah, somebody got to go because y'all are really.
I don't even think that, and I don't think it's an issue with the players. I think his issue is with the front office because when CJ got traded, he was like, what's one of the first things I want to do is I want to get in touch. I want to talk design and I want to get his temperature and see how we can connect and how we can link. I want to help him be a better player. So I think, CJ wanted to be there and he wants to be there. And I'm sure he wants to play with Zion. So this to me, this is all front office. I don't think this is an issue with the team. It's, players on the team or the coaches at all.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And that it's really unfortunate because, like I said, there's a lot of young talent there that would be a 3 for the foreseeable future. CJ's not that old. Ingram and obviously Zion are young. So
yeah, definitely.
With the Clippers potentially ending the last bit of their run, the Lakers obviously going to have to rebuild. The West is wide open if you get a solid 3. So I don't know what they're doing. Hopefully they get it right, get it together, but who knows? Just quick update. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, but if I'm the owner, like, I'm looking at David Griffin because 100%. Just think about it. Just think about what's going on under his tenure. First he comes in and says that man, his name is just escaping me. Who was the coach before Van Gundy? I can see his face. I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. He's coaching in Sacramento. But anyway, Anyway, he said that he was his guy, and then turned around and fired him. Then
was he
you go, no. He used to coach. He long time coach. He's
Alvin Gentry.
Alvin Gentry, yes. So, he said that this is my guy. He's going to be here. Then he turns around and fires him. Then you go and you hire Stan Van Gundy, and you fire him after a year.
I mean, that was a bad hire, but
I'm just saying though. But again, that's on you. You made that call. Like, this was your choice. So the fact of the matter is that we've had 3 coaches in 3 years, and you're having issues with your star player. So all of these things to me says that if I'm the owner, I'm like, I I got to look at I got to look at the common denominator in all of these issues, and the common denominator in all of these issues is David Griffin. So if
Yeah.
I'm the owner, then I'm going to look at I'm looking at him and saying, do I have the right guy? Making decisions for my franchise. So it's to me, I don't, that would be my first thing to look at the end of this season. Like me and him are gonna have a conversation. Like, look, here's the deal. Like one way or the other, it's gonna be one or two, or he's gonna no. Let me say it this way: he's gonna have to decide who is he with. Like, is he with Zion or is he with Griffin? Because it seems like it's clear that as long as David Griffin is there, I don't think Zion Williamson wants to be there. So if that's the case to where he doesn't want to be there because of David Griffin, if I'm the owner, David Griffin is out of here.
Easy.
Because I'm not losing, right, it's a no-brainer. I'm not losing that talent to keep this guy because he's done nothing to give me confidence that he's the right guy to lead my franchise.
No, we definitely are in lockstep there. And I don't know what they're doing, but hopefully it'll work out for the players' sake because they do have some young talent that I would hate for it to get wasted. But speaking, kind of young talent, so I have a follow-up question to this, and this is because I was in a group chat last night. So just bear with me, Kenny. Understand this was not my question. The second part of this. But I gotta ask, and because I had some people that were just saying some crazy stuff, and I value your opinion. But as we are, about 2 weeks out from the end of the season now? I think we got to look maybe a little over 2 weeks.
Yep.
The NBA MVP race just continues to heat up. Giannis was out tonight. I believe Jokic is playing, and they are up 2 at halftime. It looks like he is at 9, 2 and 4, so relatively pedestrian, but they are beating Phoenix currently, and actually the second half just kicked off. We've seen Phoenix and what they did, even with Chris Paul being out. So I personally would insert Devin Booker into that case. Memphis keeps winning without John Morant, so I think that definitely hurts his value. And then we saw that the Sixers were able to close out the LeBron-less Lakers last night. Well, my question to you is right now, who do you have in your top 3 for MVP? And then ultimately, who do you have as MVP today?
Oh, man, like my top 3 is kind of changed because originally, I had the 2 big fellas, Jokic and Embiid. And then my third one was Giannis. But I got to take Giannis out of there and put in Booker. I got to put Devin Booker in there because what's really kind of swayed it for me is the fact that they didn't miss a step while Chris Paul was out. Like the fact that he started really, his assist numbers went up when Chris Paul went out, and they were still winning. Like, to me, that says a lot. That says a lot of who he is as a player and also his maturity level in terms of stepping into that role of being a leader on that team. So the fact that they're still I think they're either the 1 or the 2 seed.
Who?
No, they're still the 1 seed. So like they have, they're still the 1 seed.
They're up 8.5 games.
They haven't, really. They're pretty comfortable and set and being at 1 seed because we were worried or we were concerned that they were gonna potentially give up that 1 seed once Chris Paul went out because
I think one of our topics was how far would they fall?
How far? Right, exactly. How far would they fall? And they haven't fallen at all. So I think that is a testament to Devin Booker, and I think that as a result, like you have to really put him into the MVP conversation. Of course, that you can, like I said, you could put Giannis there. You could probably put John Morant in there, although he's kind of been in and out as well. So it's a few guys that you could put in that third spot, but to me, I think it's Devin Booker.
Okay. No, I mentioned Devin Booker kind of in the lead here. I did not think that would kind of go down that path, but I 100% agree with you. And just looking at the numbers, like I said, they're 8.5 games up on the second best team in the league. Like,
and they haven't had
you
Chris Paul
should
since
be
the All-Star break. That's a
you
lot of
should be
games.
looking at that team for the MVP. Like, that's it.
Right,
And then
right.
you had the situation where what many people thought was an MVP candidate went down, and they just continued to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they will have a bit of that adjustment period, and that could be happening tonight because Campaign stepped in and looked pretty good.
He did.
He handled his role. He assisted the ball well. He shot the ball well. I'm not saying that you need to trade Chris Paul this offseason, but you can get a lot back for that $40 million that he's making. And if Ayton had a career high the other night, I think 35 and 16 or
35,
something.
yeah.
And I've been hard on him as he's playing for his a max contract this summer. So they might have some decisions in the offseason. I think they're going to have to go through what everyone's going through right now is integrating a key component into the roster. But I think the way in which they play, it's not going to be nearly as difficult. And they've kind of been through this before where this player has been out and had to come back. So I think far and away, they should be in contention. And I think it's just hard for me to argue Jokic, which is putting up great numbers, and he's without Porter Jr. most of the year and without Murray all year, but they're 16 games back. Like, at the 6th seed and potentially could fall even to the play-in if Minnesota keeps going the way they're going. It's just hard for me to make an MVP case for that. I also, and it's not often, but I watched the game when they won and Jokic had 8 points. Like, he had a bunch of rebounds, but I just, it's hard for me to argue against what Devin Booker did without Chris Paul being there. And Embiid is great, but again, it's just the wins I just don't know are there at 45 wins, and the Suns are at 59. And you've been playing with an all-star really since the all-star break, and y'all haven't looked dominant per se. That Brooklyn loss was a bad loss. The Lakers game last night wasn't impressive either. So even though you're putting up numbers, I gotta agree with you. If I get deduced right, I think Devin Booker has catapulted himself to the head of the conversation. And as long as he continues this run and they fool around and win 65, maybe 66 games,
Man, yeah, I don't know how you cannot give it to him. And I think the other thing too is that Embiid is sitting out. You know, they doing these low management games, and that doesn't help him either.
Not at all. And you could argue that if he could get the scoring title, that would help. But I think LeBron is going to be playing for that every game.
Ain't got nothing else to play for.
Right. And if it's a blowout or not competitive, you're going to save Embiid's minutes. So
right.
I think Devin might have come out of nowhere to steal this away without anybody thinking about it. And for those of you watching the Texas Tech game, we just had a wedgie on a free throw.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, that angle, like, I don't know how you do
that. I've been watching basketball, and I've been playing, watching, and coaching basketball for 30-something years. I don't think I've ever seen that.
So that was interesting. But Duke has come back. It's a tie game, about 8 minutes. So we definitely have ourselves a ball game. So exciting there. I believe the other game has started.
It just started. Arizona, Houston's up 15-7.
15-7.
15-7.
Mm-hmm. So Houston up to a fast start. We could have a potential issue with another number 1 seed.
Yeah, and I think somebody was talking about it. I think it was Anthony. Houston is really tough. I saw them play a few times because, they play in the same conference, the the American Athletic Conference. They play in the same conference as Temple, so I was watching those games because my cousin plays for them. So I've seen them play a couple times, and then I see them play in the tournament. Like they're some dogs. Like they come at you, they battle, they hit the glass really hard, they push and transition, they can score in the half court, and they can guard. So it's not going to be an easy night for Arizona by any stretch.
Yeah, and it's about halfway through the first half, and you got 7 points. That's not a great recipe for tournament success. So they better get it in gear pretty quickly. But before we do wrap up and get out of here, we do have some big NFL news. And first, I want to start with actually, we'll start with the trade. The trade's probably the bigger of the two. Tyreek Hill. A couple weeks ago, he tweeted, kind of one of those foreseeable tweets of that, things to be coming to an end. I think because of everything going on in NFL, I think it just kind of went under the radar. But seemingly out of nowhere, the Jets and the Dolphins were viewed as highly likely to trade for him because they couldn't come up with a contract extension. And so, boom, Tua gets another weapon between Waddle and Tariq. They might have the two fastest receiving core pair in the NFL. I think it'd be hard to argue against that. So what does this mean for Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes without Tyreek Hill? And what do you think this means for Miami and Tua with Tyreek Hill?
Well, from the Kansas City perspective, I think that's a really big loss. To find a guy like that could take the top off the defense and can score from anywhere on the field at any point in time, those guys are not easy to find. So it was part of what made the Kansas City offense so explosive. He was the biggest reason why they were so explosive. And also, he opened things up for other guys because you got to roll coverages to his side of the field. So that's opening up the underneath stuff for Travis Kelce, and those other guys. So losing that, we're going to really see, how great Pat Mahomes is. Everybody has always said that, the knock on him is that look at all of the talent he has around him. He's putting up these numbers because he has so much talent around him. So now that you take away one of his biggest weapons, now we're going to see, just how good Mahomes is. The other part of that is that we have to wait and see what they do with those draft picks that they get because, this draft is heavy in terms of wide receiver talent. So, we have to see what they get, if they're able to get one of those big-time talents at wide receiver. But we don't know if they're going to be able to have the impact that Tyreek Hill has. But, also at the same time, too, if there's one position that we've seen guys come in and have an immediate impact, it has been the wide receiver position in the last few years. So if you're able to draft the right wide receiver, then, maybe you're able to kind of make up for that production that you're going to lose from Tyreek Hill. And then from the other side, Damian, you nailed it. Tua has no excuses. Like you have no reason as to why you can't, put up big time numbers. You got, like you said, probably the fastest wide receiver combination in the league. Not only that, you got the tight end in Gesicki. They got my guy from the Cowboys, Cedric Wilson, that can make plays down the field as well. So you just got a plethora of weapons at your disposal. So you really have no excuse as to why you can't really have a prolific offense. So, this is going to be put up or shut up time for Tua. And we've, the jury has been out on him, not only in terms of him being able to stay healthy, but in terms of whether or not he's a number one, he's a QB1. Because they're always going to have to answer that question is you passed on Justin Herbert for Tua. So as long as he has those questions, and as long as he has the jury out on him, then you're always going to be asking those questions. So this year, there's definitely, Damien, you nailed it. No excuses for Tua. Like you got to get it done. You got everything that you need to be successful. So you got to get it done.
No, I 100% with really both sides. I was someone that was critical of Patrick Mahomes throughout the year. I did not think he played elite for the majority of the year. Even when they went on that run, I just didn't see it. And then he had the game versus Buffalo, phenomenal game. And he followed that up with a second half dud because they looked great in the first half. And they got bounced out of the playoffs. You look at 4 straight AFC championship games, 1 ring, and that's beating Jimmy G when he choked the game away. So I think if you're Kansas City, I think the concern is they just, I believe, signed Valdez-Scantling. They signed Juju. DeMarcus Robinson, I think, is still there. And they have one other receiver.
Hardman is still there.
Oh, so then I think Robinson's gone, but Hardman's there. So I think one of them left, and Pringle's gone.
Yeah, I think you're right.
None of those guys replaced Tyreek Hill. So I think the offense looks completely different. They haven't been a consistent running team. So I think Andy Reid and even Eric Bieniemy have their work cut out for them. I definitely think the offense looks different. I think Travis Kelce's role looks very different because his underneath is going to be a little less because I'm singling up really every one of those wide receivers.
Absolutely. There's nobody. Only why I'm rolling, and maybe I'm rolling coverage to Travis Kelce. Like I'm 100%. Doubling Travis Kelce and making them outside guys beat me.
So I think they got some definitely work to do there. But my point in that was I don't even know if you go draft a receiver because you signed a bunch and they gave Valdez-Scantling,
especially now after you signed Valdez-Scantling.
I think they gave almost $30 million for 3 years.
3 years, 36. Yeah, 3 years, 36 million.
And I think Juju got 12 for 1, I believe. So they threw money at the position. So I can't imagine you go and draft that. The one they got this year is late, so it's not even like a quote unquote lottery one. I think it's like in the 20s.
Yeah, so, I think they got a couple of picks that there was.
Actually, I have 29. So they got 29, 50, a 4th round, and then a 4th and a 6th in next year's draft.
But they have 2 first rounds, right?
Oh yeah, they have their own. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think that they were talking about maybe them packaging those 2 first round picks to move up.
But even like I said,
but again, to your point though, the fact that they just signed Valdez-Scantling says that they're not going to
do a long year. If they would have given him a year, maybe, but they gave him 3 years. So I want to think another receiver got overpaid, but more power to him.
I'm not a big Valdez-Scantling fan.
And I think it was on this show. It actually was pretty sure I said, "What happens if the Chiefs are the worst in that division?" And this move says they moved closer to the bottom than the top. I think they are a worse team after this deal, and we'll see what happens. I also will say we've seen this happen a good amount. We saw it in Cleveland with Baker. We've seen it in LA, and they were able to get it together. But and Patrick Mahomes is really good because they had a bunch of skill players. But when you put that many dynamic pieces in an offense, your head coach is going to have some issues figuring out getting everybody the ball because Jalen Waddle came off a 100-catch season. So he's not really trying to take no backseat. Tyreek Hill, you just paid him a ton of money on top of what you gave up to get him. So obviously the targets have to go his way. Gesicki, like you said, is no slouch. Cedric Wilson just signed there.
Right, and they still got Devontae Parker too.
They do. So Tua's not really the quarterback you want with his injury history, dropping back, throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. So McDonald got some work cut out for him as to how he's going to game plan and keep all those people happy. So I think that is going to be immense pressure on Tua to execute the game plan. The goal is going to obviously be to push the ball down the field because you brought in a bunch of people to push the ball down the field. I'm not really looking at Cedric Wilson to be a possession receiver.
And then that's not really Tua's. He doesn't have the biggest arm, so I'm not even sure if that's going to be, something that they're going to be able to do on a consistent basis.
So I don't know if this was we're going to make this move, and even though it's not to Tua your skill set, figure it out, or we're going to move on and maximize this window. But the fits don't seem to marry each other. Tua needs more of a quick West Coast offense, maybe rolling them out, getting them out of the pocket, get the ball out of his hand quickly. And the receivers they got, Waddle fit, but that was because he had a possession guy on the other side. And I don't really see a stick guy on this team besides Gesicki. Now, I think he could immensely benefit like Kelsey did, but that's at the expense of Hill and Waddle. So I think from an offensive standpoint, Miami has the work cut out for him. And with a rookie head coach and these potential personalities that have had success, I think you're asking a lot. And I definitely think if this was a plan, and I'm sure the Tyreek Hill thing maybe came up later, but you had a coach that I think would have been great in this situation, and you've just put a team together that doesn't fit your quarterback, which leads me to believe you're willing to move off of your quarterback. Now, imagine had you made the trade for Deshaun Watson, and then you made this deal. Now, you might not have been able to do that because you wouldn't have the draft picks, but if you package Tua and some other things, I don't know what Miami's doing. They fired their coach. They didn't bring in Watson, but then they brought in people that will go great with Watson and not great with the current quarterback. I just don't understand.
But here's the other thing too, is that to me, this gives more credence to the case that to Brian Flores' assertions that the owner was trying to get them to lose games because he wanted to get them in position to make a big splash this year. So like this, to me, all of these moves kind of, basically support what he was saying. So no one's really been talking about that lately, but I think this here kind of, puts those questions back in the forefront.
Absolutely. And the AFC, even if you get out of the AFC or out of your division, which the Patriots are still the Patriots.
Right.
Buffalo has loaded up as well. A lot of people talk about AFC West, but Buffalo's made moves too. They didn't lose a whole lot outside of the rapper known as Cole Beasley. So I think there's a lot of pressure in Miami on the owner because of this investigation, the head coach, because that is a heck of a situation you find yourself in from a talent standpoint. And we always talk about minorities and the opportunities they get. He's technically a minority, and this is a great opportunity. So he better get it done. But definitely a lot of moving parts there. And the final moving part that we have is I don't know if we've seen this happen because I think Baker Mayfield, he won Rookie of the Year, right? His year?
I don't think so.
I know Hugh benched him initially, but I thought he came in, and I know he went on the run.
No, because I think he came on strong towards the end of that year, but I don't think he won Rookie of the Year.
But nonetheless, he, had all the necessary tools ahead of him.
No, Saquon Barkley won it.
What a joke. A conversation for another day. What a one and two punch that turned out. That top half of that draft looks
man.
like in 10 years we're gonna look back at that draft potentially like what were people thinking between the quarterbacks because Josh Rosen was in that draft too, wasn't he?
I believe so.
And that was
the year before.
That was god awful. But this team went from having Super Bowl aspirations just a year ago to now having a number one quarterback on their team who they didn't extend, who wants a trade, and no one wants him. Like Houston has said, we're good. Carolina has seemingly said, we're good. Seattle doesn't seem super motivated.
They said, we're Drew Lock. We're locked in. We're locked in with Drew Lock.
There's like nowhere to send them because anywhere you would trade a starting quarterback, you would probably get a quarterback back, but they don't need a quarterback back. So I guess my initial question to you is, what the heck happens to Baker Mayfield?
I honestly don't know. I think he's going to wind up. They're going to wind up having to release him because, like you
Wow.
said, there's really no market for him. Uh, where where does he go? Like I don't. Maybe Atlanta, but like they got
They signed
Mariota. So if
Mariota.
I'm yeah, so if they got if I'm Atlanta, I'm good with Mariota. I take my chances with him because he was solid. You know, when he was at Tennessee, it wasn't like he was bad. He was solid. So to me, I would take a solid Mariota over a wild card of what that's Baker Mayfield. And just on a side note, I don't know what Skip Bayless sees in Baker Mayfield, but he speaks of
Man,
him like he's the second coming. But this is the
man,
same guy that loves Tim Tebow, so we got to take that with a grain of salt.
I don't think those are the same things, but I understand why you would say that for sure.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know where he winds up. I think he's going to wind up getting released. To be honest with you, because there's really no market for him. So um, I just think he winds up getting released. But I don't know what the cap implications of that is. So I don't know if they're going to, you know, want to be motivated to make a deal just because they don't want to have to deal with the cap ramifications.
I agree with you on a lot of things. I would say the cap ramifications. I believe this last year, since it was his fifth year option, is fully guaranteed. So I think it would carry the full weight of the
So it would
19
be a
million.
full cap hit. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm pretty sure it's the full cap hit. And again, he was the number one pick. I'm pulling it up now. It looks like the cap hit for this year is the 18.8.
Okay.
Um,
So
so
yeah, he's gonna. That's a
that's a
lot of
lot.
money.
That's a lot to eat
Absolutely.
in giving them away. I think the other part to me that's really ironic is there's more and more reports of an interest in bringing Odell and Jarvis back,
For
which
Cleveland?
to Cleveland,
Oh
uh,
wow.
given the new quarterback situation. So I think that says a lot about who they thought the
Oh, that says
problem was.
everything. That says
Uh,
everything.
and that is just a crazy fall from grace. I'll be curious. I haven't seen any yet, but it is not it's football season yet, but Progressive has some decisions to make. uh I imagine they've given that man a bunch of money and they've probably halted all filming of new commercials
No doubt about
because
it.
you can't have a I don't even
Yeah.
know
With no team,
who.
like
Yeah,
yeah,
he just
what are you
be
gonna film?
he'd be like he's not on the roster. Like I imagine, maybe Detroit or Seattle kicks the tires if he's released. But if I'm Seattle and even Atlanta, I think I'm playing to lose. So I don't want to bring in the distraction. Like
Mhm.
that counteracts what we're trying to do here. So maybe the Giants bring them in and have a competition if you can get them for cheap. But I don't know if we've seen such a drastic turn of events in such a short period of time to he's our guy. Baker, we're moving forward with him. We cut Jarvis to, oh, Deshaun's available. Oh, we're not in Deshaun. Oh, we love you, Baker. We want to move forward to Baker puffing out his chest like trade me to Indianapolis. And Indianapolis like, we'd rather take Matt Ryan after the year he had. And now everybody's saying no. So I don't know if this is an agent issue. I don't know where Baker got bad information about his value. But Damian, to your point, trading for Jordan Love, but they have a backup.
Yeah, that makes no
Um,
sense. But that makes
they
no
got
sense
Brissett.
for well, maybe for Green Bay, then you have you know for
Rodgers and
Aaron
Baker on
Rodgers
the
when he
same team, those two
retires.
personalities.
Yeah, maybe the only thing I could think of is maybe that's an upgrade over Jordan Love, and then you have your potential replacement for Aaron Rodgers once he retires because you're still not sure if Jordan Love is the guy, maybe. But I wouldn't do that if I'm Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers for at least 2 years based on
Yeah,
the
and I
contract.
wouldn't want that distraction because I
And
don't
if
think
I'm
he would.
Baker, I'm not taking a minimum deal. Like he might.
Yeah,
Like this is just. It's
yeah,
just
that's wild.
how everything has turned out. We
What about
got
Pittsburgh?
Carson Wentz.
Do you bring him in and have him compete with Trubisky?
At what cost?
Well, I guess it would depend on whether or not he gets released. Maybe you don't bring him
Yeah,
in. You know what I'm
I don't think
saying?
you trade
You're not
for
going to
him.
trade for him with that salary. You would want to, sign him as a free agent. And
And
I
you would
think
pay.
honestly, maybe that may be what if I'm Baker, that might be what I'm pushing so that I can decide on where
Oh yeah,
my
for
next
sure.
stop is. You know what I'm saying? Because my money is already guaranteed. I got my money coming. So I could take a short deal because my money is already guaranteed. So
Mhm.
I could take a short deal, um, and go somewhere where I think I'm going to have a chance to get on the field.
Yeah, but you go there and can't beat out Mitchell Trubisky, then you really in
Yeah, that's true.
in a bad spot. So we will have to wait and see on what Cleveland has in store for Mr. Mayfield. But again, like I said, trading for Sam Darnold,
Yeah, they
Cleveland
said
doesn't
they
need
were
a
good on
quarterback
that.
back. Like if I'm Cleveland, I'm not taking a quarterback in return. So
Right.
you got to deal with the extra quarterback on
Yeah.
your roster.
Right.
We don't want a
Yeah.
quarterback back.
And if you're Sam Darnold, that's the last thing you want to happen because you're not going to see the field.
Yeah, and then you got to cut him. But they were in the same draft, so both of them would have the fully guaranteed cap hits.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that doesn't
I
help
don't
them at
think
all.
Carolina can't even take that. And I think I forget who the backup is there, but they might be looking at maybe even bringing Kyle Allen or something like that back because we cut him. So
Yeah, okay.
I am very interested to see, and I think once we get to the draft and these rookie quarterbacks get drafted, it really gets shaky because the other issue is they keep saying that Pittsburgh after the pro day is really looking at Willis. So if Willis falls to them,
Yeah.
then I'm definitely I'm not signing Baker if he gets released.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of the weaker draft, there might be quarterbacks available for Seattle when they go to draft as well. So this would be crazy if Baker's out of the league next year. I mean, he'd be
can you
getting paid,
imagine
but
that? Like
that would be.
This would be like, what's my man's name that flamed out in Oakland?
Russell?
Man, I can't. Yeah, Jamarcus Russell. This would be like that. Like
Yeah.
to go from being the number one pick to being out of a job, like being released. Like we haven't seen that since him.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he goes and backs up Kyler Murray. Like that. It's wild.
This is nice, man. Like you said, it's just not a whole lot of. It's just not a whole lot of options. It's not a whole lot of options for him. So, I really don't know what his next move is going to be. And even if he does get released, even if if he doesn't get traded and he gets released, I don't know what his next move is going to be.
And we still haven't talked about it, but Jimmy G's still technically available. So I think they're having a hard time moving him. And I think he's more valuable than Baker.
And I was going to say, if I'm teams, I'm trading for Jimmy G before I'm trading for Baker.
So we would definitely.
They're both the same boat. Can't stay healthy, but one has been more of a proven winner than the other.
Yeah, and a much better leader by all accounts.
Yes.
So, when the organization puts out, we want an adult at quarterback, and we go get a guy with 22 civil lawsuits, like
man,
that says a lot.
And then not only that, like you're basically just sabotaging. Even if you wanted to move this guy, like that's basically sabotaging his market value. So that's even hurting your chances of getting any value back in the trade. So what does that say that you make that statement?
I mean, you could keep him, and you never want to, but pray for an injury to maybe a starter somewhere, and then you'll have an opportunity to trade for him. But otherwise, you're gonna start going to this year with two very highly paid quarterbacks. So it'll be wild, but That's what we got. We have ourselves. We're almost at halftime. Houston is still up 9, almost at the half, 31-22 of Arizona. So upset alert, definitely
Mhm.
on the way there. Duke, I don't have. Let me
Duke
see.
is down 4. It's 33-29. Texas Tech is up on Duke at the
At
half.
halftime. Okay.
Hmm.
So definitely you guys tune into that. Look like we got some great college basketball games for you guys this evening. Thank you for joining in with us. Hopefully you were entertained. We will definitely keep you abreast of all the changes throughout the week on ASAP Network. So tune in. Make sure that you're subscribing to the YouTube, the morning shows, the sports shows, the articles that are coming out. I don't know if you guys have seen, but we've had some new graphics when it comes to some of the breaking news that look pretty dope. So ASAP's moving. We will have Freddie, who's our CEO, who's actually on travel. They're doing some big things down in, I believe it's Louisiana. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on what we have in store. We are growing ever fast. We have a new show coming to the network from one of our own that I believe. Do you know when that kicks off, Kenny?
I don't. Actually, I
No.
think it's a couple of new shows that are coming, so stay tuned for those. I
So
know
definitely great.
Jonathan. I know Jonathan has a show coming, and there's one more that I saw today that's coming. So just stay tuned because we're gonna give you all the sports, all the even the minds of creativity. Be able to look out for that because that's gonna be more the creative based uh, content. So we're just gonna hit you from all angles.
Absolutely. And my podcast, the Bond Chronicles podcast, is over on Minds of Creativity. We drop that every Monday at noon. So ASAP's moving. And so Damien and the rest of you guys, Anthony, who were on with us, Con Man, who was on with us, thank you so much for the support. Continue to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you get the notifications because you never know when we're going to go live, especially with all the breaking news going on in NFL
Sure.
and NBA. Hopefully, we'll get a bell that Ben Simmons gets activated at some point. That'll definitely change the dynamic in the NBA. But it has been a pleasure on this Thursday night. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy these college basketball this weekend. We'll be recapping that on Monday, as well as any other breaking news. Have a good